Hey everyone, it's Wellbeing Wednesday. My name's Dr. Ruth Allan, and I wanted to bring you my Facebook live cast here today and really talk about how to recognise the signs of grief in a crisis. And boy, are we in a crisis at the moment. So are you experiencing feelings of anger or rage, or perhaps unexpected feelings of depression, even guilt around the position that you're in at the moment, whereas before the crisis that wasn't the case? It could be that you are experiencing signs of grief. Now, we typically refer to grief as somebody or something that we have lost. Typically it's around the somebody or a beloved pet that we have lost, and that triggers us into the cycle of grief. But it can be so much more than that, and I think that in this crisis, with the increased rates of anxiety, increased rates of depression, and also increases we are seeing in terms of people's anger and their responses to any constraints that are imposed as part of this crisis, can all really be tied into us experiencing the different stages of grief. Why is that? Because we've lost, as a result of the crisis we're in now, we've lost our sense of freedom in the first instance. We've lost our sense of security. Some people may have lost their emotional connection to the job, that they loved, the environment that they were working in, that they loved, that real strong emotional bond that we have to what brings us joy has been taken away from many people. Other people have lost, obviously, dear loved ones and friends as a result of the virus. We also have people, as I said, who've lost their jobs, they've lost their livelihoods, they may have lost their ability to go outside and really connect with the world. So how can we really think about checking in and finding out what is it that I'm experiencing, and can that really be attributed to me experiencing grief? So if we think about the 5 pillars of brain health, it's really good to use that core framework to check in and ask yourself, what have I lost in terms of the current situation that I'm in? Have I lost anything, and is that really causing me to feel the way that I'm feeling? So first of all, if we think of the facts, let's look at the facts, and facts is the mnemonic for the 5 pillars of brain health. So F is for feelings. How have your feelings changed since the crisis started? What is it? How is it you used to feel? What emotions did you used to have? What were they attached to? And how are you feeling now? Excuse me, I'm just going to get tissue. How are you feeling now? So perhaps before the crisis, you may have felt super happy because of the job you're in. You may have felt elated because of the ability to go outside, and that's now all been taken away from you. So you've lost something associated with that, a real strong emotional connection. And we know that emotions drive everything about us from a human perspective. So try and get connected with what it is you've lost emotionally, what emotions have changed as a result of the crisis. That's the first thing to really look at. The second thing is A is for actions. So what's changed from an actions perspective? What's changed in terms of your work activities? What's changed in terms of your fitness, your nutritional activities? What has changed in that concept? And also your connection with other people, the activities that you used to do to connect with people. How has that shifted? What have you lost from an actions perspective? Think about all of the things that you may have lost there. The third thing is to think about what you have lost from a connections perspective. And I mentioned this just a second ago, but this is not only the connections that you've lost to others, but also really the connections to yourself, the connections to your core values, your purpose, your values and beliefs. And this is particularly important if you've lost your job, for example. That can have a huge impact on how you feel connected to your core values, because you may feel as if you don't have the purpose that you previously had, and you need to kind of figure out a way to reframe that or re-find the purpose that will really drive you forward. So where has the loss occurred with regards to connections to others and also connections to yourselves? And then fourthly, I want to think about your thoughts. What's changed? What have you lost from a thought perspective? So a lot of people have lost the ability, particularly people who are working super hard, super busy, have had everything crammed into their day in a single space, with kids running around like crazy, trying to pack in a work day, as well as being a childminder. They may have lost that sense of space in their mind to really think clearly, that connection to their thoughts, those thoughts that really matter to them, having that freedom to think clearly about what's most important to them in life. And that has had a huge impact on some people. And then finally, the fifth part of our 5 pillars of brain health is your connection to your surroundings, how you see and perceive your surroundings, and really how you sense them. And that's the connection to your 5 senses: how you smell, how you hear, how you see, how you taste, and how you touch. So have any of your senses been affected as a consequence of this crisis? And we know people who have indeed caught the virus have lost that sense of connection to smell and to taste, and that's a really significant loss, because that really drives how we emotionally connect with food, how we emotionally connect with the world around us, and that can have a huge impact on us from an emotional standpoint, and could be considered as really grieving the loss associated with that sense of smell or a sense of taste. So what is it that you feel that you have lost? And particularly if you think about surroundings, for people who were able to socialize and go out and connect with other people, they've lost that opportunity to explore their surroundings in the way that they felt comfortable with. So ultimately this all boils down to our sense of connection to the world around us. How has that really changed for you, and the emotional charge associated with those changes as a result of that loss of freedom, that loss of emotional attachment, that loss of activity that we used to do, the loss of the connection with ourselves, our core values and beliefs, or connection with others, the loss of our ability to think clearly, to have that capacity in our mind to have those appropriate thoughts that really move us forward, and the loss of our connection with our surroundings and really how we sense them. Now there's 5 cycles that typically recognise, or 5 stages of grief, and I myself lost my dad back in September 2019, so I'm very familiar with grief itself, and it can really overwhelm you. And those 5 stages don't have to happen in certain order, they can happen all in one day. And those 5 stages are denial and isolation, which we do see in the media. You can see a lot of people who are in denial about the situation actually taking place, or feeling super isolated about the current crisis, feeling completely disconnected with what's going on, or disconnected from the world. The next stage is anger, and we've seen around the world, the anger associated with that loss of freedom, that anger associated with decisions that have had to be made by governments in order to help contain the spread. Anger associated with other people not complying by the rules. So there's a whole heap of anger associated with that. And then we also have bargaining, so people trying to bargain over the situation, trying to see how they can create a win-win situation, and that's the 3rd stage of grief. And then the 4th is depression, and as we've seen, that depression is really on the rise at that moment. That's completely understandable given the fact that we've lost so much over the last 6 months as a consequence of this virus. And then fifth is acceptance. Some people have been able to move into the acceptance phase, to accept the new norm and just to move on, whereas others are not there yet. And that's okay, because we all go through this cycle of grief at different paces, depending on how we've connected with it in the first place, how we've been affected by it, and any previous trauma or emotional connections we've had as associated with loss. So we all respond to grief differently. We all go through the cycle of grief very differently. What I found myself has been super helpful in terms of getting through grief, having lost my father, is havening, is really able to sort of calm me down and be able to bring me some perspective. And I've been able to do that with Certified Havening Techniques Practitioner, which I'm now myself, and also been able to do some self-havening to really calm down day-to-day anxiety and day-to-day struggles that arise as a result of this situation. So if you are really struggling with your emotions at this time, perhaps it could be that you're grieving as a consequence of the situation that we're at now in, as a consequence of the losses that you've really experienced. If you would like to find out how you can learn more about self-havening to really help yourself get through those day-to-day anxieties, that day-to-day struggles that you may be experiencing, then make sure you join me live on Friday with Fallon Jordan, when I'll be talking to her about self-havening techniques on the Brain MD and the Eamon University Facebook page. And if you would like to find out more about how you can learn about the research associated with havening, then do visit my website, where there is a link on my havening page to find out more about how I can really help you and what research has been done behind havening itself. I hope you found this really helpful to really reflect on how can you recognise the signs of grief. And as I said, we check in with the 5 pillars of brain health, how you're feeling, your actions, your connections to yourself and others, your thoughts that you're having, and the surroundings and how you sense them. If you think about what you've lost associated with those 5 pillars, then that may be able to give you some clues with regards to whether you are in that process of grief and how you can move yourself through it and get through the other side to really accept, be in an acceptance phase and really be able to move forward and move on with life. Thank you for listening.